We all know how frustrating it is when you're trying to explain something to someone and they just don't get it.
But have you ever been in one of those tremendous moments when you're trying to get your point across and the other person just completely reads your mind?
A few months ago, Neil and I had such a moment, a mutual discovery that blew our perspectives clean out of the water.
So it was late one night, and Jake and I had to meet up here in the union to finish an assignment we both procrastinated on. And we didn't know each other too well. I think we all have those acquaintances that you see and you're like, hey, we should get lunch sometime. In your head, you're like, I'm never actually going to get lunch with them.
Well, one thing led to another, and we ended up talking about everything except that assignment, and just about life in general, just shooting the breeze. But let's call it for what it really is, shameless procrastination. And that's the first step. Well, during our discussion, a question came to mind. It's a simple one, but it's one that I felt that people have never asked enough. Are you happy?
He's right, people don't ask that. I've never been asked that in a random conversation with an acquaintance who I'll never get lunch with. But I looked at him and he was stone-faced, he was serious. He really wants to know, am I happy? Yeah, I answer, yeah, I'm doing good. I didn't know how it was going to be in a couple weeks because I was about to finish up taking a medication for showing signs of bipolar disorder.
It was so nonchalant. And what blew me away wasn't his genuine prompt response, but the fact that my heart kind of skipped a beat. I've dealt with clinical depression for as long as I can remember, and I immediately felt that I might have finally found a brother in arms, someone who just got it. We spent the next 3 hours sharing our stories, and what did I discover? Here's a guy who knows what it's like to have your motivation completely drained from you, leaving you unable to force yourself out of bed. Here's a guy who, like me, has become a skilled actor to convince everybody he's fine when he's anything but fine. Here's a guy who understands how easy it is to rationalize your own death as a solution when all hope seems false, undeserved, or absent.
Now, that sounds intense, and it was intense. It's an intense topic. But the thing is, Jake and I felt like we could talk about it freely for the first time because the other person completely understood. They'd undergone a similar kind of experience. Most of the people we talk to have never undergone something like, or gone through something like depression, so they're not really equipped to fully understand. We feel like we have to talk through a filter, you know? How do you express that your feelings are so chemical? How do you say it in a way where, you know, make sure the other person doesn't look at you differently and doesn't scare them off and make them worry about you all the time? But with Jake, I didn't have to use that. We didn't have to use the filter. He understood because he's gone through it.
Seeing the pure recognition in his face, hearing that tone of voice that said, I've been there. For once, I had someone who saw my condition as more than just a collection of symptoms and saw how it influenced all these different parts of my life. We were speaking the same language. You know, he just got it. I felt human for once. How do I describe what that feels like after so long? Liberation, perhaps. Freedom from this idea that I was some mental train wreck forced to push myself away from other people. Neil and I left the union that night bound by shared experience and comforted by the fact that our story had been heard, but more importantly, understood.
It was great. We left. We were like, yeah, we both know we're depressed. Good job. But I'm telling you, put a light spin on anything. It makes it great. But seriously, we were thinking about it, and we realized the odds of us having this random chance occurrence, this interaction with two people who completely understood, were pretty slim. Most of the people we know have never undergone something like depression. And the people who have, people who are depressed or have any sort of mental illness, they don't go around advertising it on a stage, usually.
Well, the statistics are there to prove that we're not alone, but the dialogue isn't, and that's what matters. While we all know that mental illness exists, we're uncomfortable with the fact that it could be happening right next to us with the people that we love. And it's that sense of comfort that causes people to view mental illness as a bit of a character flaw. But even that stigma doesn't get to the heart of the problem because it's a lack of understanding. And the question becomes, how do you understand an experience that you've never lived through? Is there a way you can place yourself in another person's mindset, to see life through their eyes, to actually empathize and really understand the experience and provide them that same liberation that I felt?
Of course there's a way, or else we wouldn't be giving a talk. So, can you basically experience something like depression without actually having to experience it? Trust me, it's not fun. Yes, we do it all the time. We have these vicarious experiences where we don't actually live through it. We do it all the time. We do it when we read stories. Okay, now think about this. Have you ever been so engrossed in a story, in some form of literature, that you feel like you're going along every situation alongside that character? Do you remember what it was like sitting next to Harry Potter in Hogwarts and you feel like, you know, you're out there flying on brooms and stuff? Like, I don't remember what it was like. I've never been a wizard, but I kind of felt like I had that. Maybe I have been a wizard, you don't know. So, but wouldn't it make sense that that same kind of effect could happen if you read some sort of literature about depression? You kind of have a vicarious experience with it that you can use to empathize with someone else. It would make sense, and it sounds logical, but it's also biological.
In a study published last year in Science, Dr. David Kidd and Dr. Emanuele Castano found that reading literary fiction improved a person's ability to empathize. And another recent study done by researchers at Emory University found that reading creates lasting physical changes in your brain and which suggests that, quote, reading can transport you into the body of the protagonist.
So the reason for this effect, neuroscientists call mirror neurons, which are neurons in our frontal cortex that kind of turn on whether we observe a reality or actually have it happen to us. Essentially, your brain is wired to be able to put yourself in the position of someone else, and this effect is amplified immensely when you read literature on that topic.
The point is, it's a story that moves a person to understanding and empathy. It's the narrative that gives a voice to an experience that we might never come to know. So what if we were able to create such a voice for all mental illness? What if we collected stories among us that captured how mental illness affects our lives in so many different ways? What if putting these stories to paper were the first step to starting a conversation? And what if we started right here, right now?
So what Jake and I are doing is creating a collection of writings on mental illness for the OU family. You know, poems, short stories, essays, whatever a vignette is, I don't know. Jake says it a lot. Honestly, said it like 20 times, I have no idea what he's talking about. But we want to create a collection of these writings on mental illness written by students here at the university. And the intent is to, one, give students a chance to sort of give their illnesses a voice. And two, give anyone a chance to be able to read this literature and put themselves in that position so they can empathize with someone else someone who has that affliction or effect, whatever. But we're calling the project Open Heart, Open Mind, in the spirit that shared experience builds empathy. Anybody can walk a mile in somebody's shoes just by reading a few hundred words of their story.
But enough about us. We want your stories. We want to add your voices. This is for anyone who has dealt with mental illness and wishes to add to the dialogue, or even if you know a friend who suffered through the same thing. Email us your stories. Find us on Facebook. Come talk to us after this. Just find us and we'll make it happen.
And luckily, TEDxOU is going to help spread that email around in case you're wondering about that. But, however, regardless of our project, the main idea we wish to convey is that we would hope anybody who suffers from any type of mental illness, I don't know, depression, mania, obsessive-compulsive, anything, has a chance to experience that understanding and that empathetic type of interaction like the one that Jake and I had.
I'm sick and tired of hearing that so many people feel that they can't seek help because what they're going through can't be understood, that it isn't relatable. Neal and I would give anything for others to feel that same liberation, that aha moment in which you realize that your experience is relatable, that you are human.
And anybody can give someone that understanding, that empathetic interaction. Any of you can strive to understand somebody's situation and give more than a kind heart, more than sympathy, but understanding and empathy. Thank you.
Good?
Good?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.